Hey everybody, I want to thank you for joining me for this brief discussion over church planting and church revitalization. I want to thank you pastors for joining me, and as we look at this, kind of exploring what's next for your churches. So first off, I wanted to give you just a quick breakdown of the United States religious outlook at this point. In 2010, 55% of the U.S. claimed a religious affiliation other than Christianity. By 2020, that's expected to be up to 56% if trends persist. 56%, I know it's only 1% more, but that actually represents 190 million people in the U.S. claiming something other than Christianity, which for us, that's a really big deal. And church planting and revitalization are attempting to address that. And so what I want to talk about in this briefing is how you can consider the options between planting and revitalization for your church. So I want to start first off with church planting, the pros of church planting. So first off, church plants reach more people per capita than existing churches. Studies show, Bruce McNichol put out some statistics that said a church that's under 3 years old reaches 10 people per 100 church members for Christ. When it's 3 to 15 years old, that number drops to 5 people per 100 members, and then once it reaches past 15 years, it's 3 people per 100. So that number drops drastically, and that's what's so popular about a church plant right now. The next one is church plants have a greater success in reaching new areas. That one's kind of common sense. Church plants, the entire goal is to go to an area that hasn't been reached before, or one that has a smaller representation of Christ in that area, so they're obviously going to excel in that. The third one is church plants are adaptable. The smaller size of it, the informal structure, less board approval for things, more of a pastor-driven teamwork approach rather than the board, gives them an opportunity to be more adaptable and acclimate themselves to culture and address shifts that they need to take in order to reach the people group that they're going after. Some of the cons with church planting, though, is one, they lack finances. They don't have the typical givers that help fund projects or help fund buildings and things like that. They're forced to find donor sources outside the traditional model, which takes a lot more time and can be a lot more difficult, and there's no guarantees. The second con there is church plants encounter more logistical difficulties. They have to find a place to meet. They don't have programs in place for kids and youth, even welcoming visitors or how to address prayer time at the end. They don't have any of that, and they also don't have that guaranteed base of volunteers to help with any of that. The third con is church plants have less credibility in their communities. Nowadays in modern America, communities are suspicious of new churches opening. So plants are going to have to take a lot more time to build relationships in their communities to establish a trust there so that they can go on and do what they feel like they've been called to do, and that's going to significantly delay the start time of the church and even the growth of the church as they're working on building that relationship. Now on to church revitalization. Some of the pros there are that existing churches have more resources. They've got land, they've got buildings, they've got equipment that can be used or even sold to generate more resources to begin the revitalization process. Another one is existing churches have community recognition. Even if they're a smaller church, they've made a name for themselves in the community. Even if people just drive by and see the building, they know it's there. And so when revitalization starts to happen, people see new things happening out of that church. It creates a stir, generates curiosity, and encourages people to come check out what's going on. The third pro is existing churches have dedicated church members. Even if they only have 10 of those members, those 10 are a workforce for the pastor that he can lean on and use when working on revitalizing a church, and all the different projects and things. When he has them on board, it helps out so much. Now on to the cons for revitalization. One is existing churches may have a negative stigma in the community. The church may have a bad name for itself. It may, it could be just that they think it's dead or irrelevant, but it could be something much worse. Either way, the new pastor, the one that's revitalizing, is going to have to make great efforts to change this opinion and reputation that the church has developed. The second one is existing churches carry opposition to change. People have been there for a long time. There's traditions and feelings involved and emotions and things like that. And so these traditions aren't going to go away easily. It's going to require patience and persistence when dealing with these issues for that new pastor. The third con there is existing churches have outdated infrastructures. The board setup, the way the business is run, the way the worship team is done, the way the ministry staff is set up, all these things that are outdated are potential hindrances to this new pastor, and they're going to kind of block the way for positive change. So that's the third con. I want to show you guys my sources, just so you can look at those if you have any questions, or you can send those to me. And I want to thank you for your time, for listening, and I pray that you would just listen to what God has to say for you and your church and what the future is. And I thank you for your time.